Welcome in, Buckeye Backers. It's Buckeye Steve, along with...
Blake Biscardi from the Saturday Cadence podcast and the Silver Bulletin.
Man, it was a show today.
It was.
We got a lot of information really quick. It was packed. We had Ryan Day and the offense here today. Ryan Day started it off big, saying he's the offensive coordinator, basically. He did mention it was going to be kind of a group approach to play calling. Brian Hartline is at wide receiver coach, and it was just because of the grueling nature of the timing of things and where they need to focus their attention. So what were your thoughts on that, man?
My first thought on that was Ryan Day saying he's going to be the primary play caller, the ultimate decision maker per se, with the play calling in the Cotton Bowl and the college football playoff. Didn't surprise me a lot because you see how things are trending. We've talked about Brian Hartline's attention being divided. Ryan Day has said that. Again, whose fault is it? It really falls on the college football calendar. It's something that's out of the control of both parties. I think Ryan Day is saying that Brian Hartline's going to be the wide receivers coach. He's still going to be involved. He said Keenan Bailey's going to be involved a lot. It's a group effort. And I think what makes it easier for Ohio State in this is obviously Ryan Day is an elite play caller. He's done it before. So this is not new territory for Ohio State. Just might not be the ideal situation. But when he said we have such a great group of guys on this staff, top to bottom on the offensive side of the ball, then this is something that you can execute because you have great input coming from guys around. Also, trusting Matt Patricia with the defense, I think, is a big deal because last year we know the involvement that Ryan Day had to have with Jim Knowles after the Oregon game. Matt Patricia is the CEO of the defense. He's in control of that defense, and you can trust him. He said that relationship's been great. So this is something I think Ohio State's a little bit more comfortable with, given all of those circumstances. But I think they're going to do a great job in the playoff.
And that's not the only thing to unpack here. We'll get into the rest of it. But he did mention the difference in play calling. Having his nose in the sheet instead of eyes up on the field is a little bit of a different strategy for him. Obviously, he's been kind of the number one and ultimate vetoer of play calling throughout this time and probably always will be while he is head coach at Ohio State. So it's not going to be much of a change. And he kind of emphasized that a little bit too. Like, he's always involved. Let's be honest. Ryan Day is an offensive guy. He made his living, I guess, as offensive coordinator before becoming head coach here. So not much is going to change in that regard. And he's always heavily involved in this offense. The other thing was we got to talk about right guard, right? Right guard has been an issue of concern all season long. And it sounds like Taker's out at least a couple of weeks. There was no defined amount of time if it was going to be the season. But he said, we'll play that as it comes. We don't talk about injuries. So he's at least out this next game and probably the foreseeable future. So we got Gabe Van Sickle, sicko mode, man. We got to get those nicknames in. Some of them aren't mentionable on air, so we didn't talk about those. So anything that you want to mention from the right guard situation?
Let alone we didn't talk about Carson Hinsman. He was pretty, he gave us a couple, and he's like, those are not for everybody. That's just kind of in-house here for us. But he had high praise for Gabe Van Sickle. Ryan Day did as well. And then Josh Padilla continuing to rotate those guys, get them reps. And Ryan Day talked about trust. Just like in any relationship, he said you have to earn trust to get into that spot, and then you have to perform on the field, and that starts in practice, and it translates into the game. And that's what's happened for both of those guys. So he said they feel good about that. And again, the Tigger Shabola news is something that we've had a heads up on for a couple of weeks. It's not the surprise of everyone's jaw dropping across the room like, okay, Tigger Shabola's out. Ohio State has a new offensive lineman starting in the college football playoff. It's like we can all pump the brakes. This has been something that's been at least known enough for that. And Ohio State's been ready. They've been prepared, and Van Sickle and Padilla have both rotated into the game at times anyway this season. So this is like bringing in an extra starter. I think Carson Hinsman was the one who said that we found out we have more depth than we thought that we did with guys stepping up, which has been a huge sign, and that's also encouraging if you're the Buckeyes or an Ohio State fan to know that you're still in good hands regardless of who's going to be in that right guard position. And Shabola's been shaky, and you never want to wish a guy ill or that he's not starting. But again, maybe this is something that Ohio State needs just to get that offensive line cohesion back, because this is a good unit. There's great players. And Shabola's had his moments to shine too this season.
You're right.
But he has been the weaker of the offensive linemen. So another guy with a fresh chance and a hunger, I think might be good for Ohio State here against a ferocious Miami pass front.
And that right guard situation leads us right into that. Carson Hinsman did talk about last year how they had to kind of restructure the offensive line, so they have a history of doing that. They have a good solid 3 weeks to do that before they go face Miami on New Year's Eve in the Cotton Bowl, which is it's amazing that we get to have this opportunity. There's a lot of players from our team that were from the Miami area or South Florida area. There's a lot of players on their team that committed to us and then changed his mind later on. Their running back Fletcher. So all these storylines, there's a tremendous amount of topics to touch on today. And Carson Hinsman provided some of those. He was a great interviewee. The best part of it was when he was doing the Zoom conversation. Yes. He was like, I don't know where to look. Where do I look up? Who do I look at when I'm talking? And it was just kind of funny. He was very humorous during that, and it was nice to kind of see some of that. But this team looks like they're locked in. They're ready to roll. And let's talk about Jeremiah Smith. Are we ready to move on to Jeremiah Smith? Because he was the highlight of the show today.
Absolutely. I think Jeremiah Smith coming to the podium, even before we get to the big soundbite that you'll give everybody, Ryan Day talked about it just as much as Jeremiah Smith and what he had to go through to play in that game against Michigan, just to show his toughness. So Buckeye Nation, if you were curious of Jeremiah Smith and how much buy-in that he has to this team and how much he's not just about number 4, he's about this team in Ohio State, that was echoed. They said, he should have been out 3 or 4 weeks. And Ryan Day actually said he willed himself to play in that game, didn't really practice that much. And then to play in that game wasn't enough. It was to play the way he did in that game too, despite that injury. It was a quad strain. And then to have that kind of performance, to play so well on just short amount of time, he didn't regret playing against Rutgers. He didn't regret playing against UCLA, when he was talking about that. But him stepping onto the field against Michigan was a much bigger deal than I think everybody anticipated into that, and just shows his toughness. And he did everything he had to do. He said, whatever I can do for my team, I'm going to do. And that's what he did to get back onto the field, listening to the trainers. And then him and Ryan Day just had a face-to-face conversation. And Ryan Day said, listen, we're going to go out and try to win this game with or without you, but we need you. We want you. And he said it took a little bit of a weight off of Jeremiah's shoulders, because you can see it in his eyes, how much he cares, how much he wants to be here out on the field at Ohio State, competing at the highest level in the most important games. And now he's fully healthy for the college football playoff with a big message.
I thought what was really interesting before we get to that message was the fact that he went out against UCLA, played the game, tried to give it his all. He did get injured that week of practice, is what he told us. But he also said he didn't regret it one bit. He wants to be out there for his team. He wants to be out there competing at the highest levels. And he showed it against UCLA with that one-handed catch before he had to go out. So, I mean, this guy is not only just a workaholic. He's not only one of the best receiver in college football, and maybe of all time, he's generational. I know I'm throwing a little bit on his plate, but still, this guy is a once-in-a-lifetime type of guy that you're going to watch in Jeremiah Smith. And he's got the work ethic. He's got the mindset to back it up. But he did give us a little bit of a soundbite today when he was talking about the 2002 Miami Ohio State National Championship game and the animosity that's there. He's got it too. He grew up there. And he said, we got a little something to show them on New Year's Eve. And wow, I was like, did he say that? Because he kind of said it a little softly. Went back and looked at the tape. He sure said it. So he's providing it, and every time he provides it, he kind of backs it up. He did say he hates losing to Michigan. He's not going to do it again while he's here. And guess what? He didn't.
And he proved himself to get onto the field in that game when he probably shouldn't have played. And that's just showing you the buy-in that you have from Jeremiah Smith, but also the competitive nature. He is ultra competitive. I think that's the thing you could say about everybody in this building. It's one of the most ultra competitive places in America. But you see a guy like Jeremiah Smith saying something like that. It's not from a place of arrogance. It's confidence in his game and in this team. And you're going to see that from the Miami side too. I mean, for these programs not playing in over a decade, they're pretty familiar with each other. Ohio State recruits in their backyard. There have been recruiting battles back and forth. Like you said, the decommits, Mark Fletcher. There's a lot of intertwining between these two programs too. And Mario Cristobal has beaten Ohio State. We kind of forget that.
He's 1-0 against
thinking about
Ryan
this.
Day.
Yeah, he was on the sideline for Oregon when they came to Columbus and beat them a couple of years ago. So Mario Cristobal knows what it takes to beat a team like Ohio State. Miami has gotten into the playoff. People weren't sure if that was going to happen. Now they're hungry. They go in the College Station to beat Texas A&M at Kyle Field, hold that offense to just 3 points. So Miami's playing with some confidence and swagger too. And we are going to be in for a heavyweight fight in Dallas.
And you see it with their fans too. Their fans are talking. They're ready. They talk about Ohio State's offense not being good. They can't block anyone. Well, they had 7 sacks in their last game against Texas A&M for Miami's defensive line. And that was where we didn't transition earlier. So we got to transition now, because that defensive line, Bain is been mentioned. I don't know how many times he was mentioned. 4, 5, 6.
Bain and Mesidor, both.
Yeah. And Mesidor, exactly. Their whole defensive line stands out. I mean, when you get 7 sacks against Texas A&M, who was at one time the best of the best in the SEC. They lost that last game against Texas, so maybe not, but they're up there. I mean, they went undefeated until that last game in the SEC play. So this is a great team. Miami is holding up their end of the bargain. They showed they deserved to be in the playoffs, and there was controversy about that, which I find ironic, but They're here. They're ready to play. They're ready to show that they can take it to the next level against the Buckeyes in the Cotton Bowl. And it starts with that defensive line and our offensive line, how they match up, how they block. And that's the key word, the one-word answer from Ryan Day. How do you beat this defensive line? You block them. I mean, it's the most obvious thing, but sometimes that's the way football is. It's obvious. You got to be the one that's the aggressor, and you got to be the one that's fundamentally sound, and you got to be able to execute.
Yeah, and that was a consistent soundbite from everybody that they had in terms of their messaging. Yes, Ryan Day encapsulated into the two words, block them. But Carson Hinsman talked about going back to the basics, getting your foundation right. We know this brick by brick that Ohio State has built over the last 2 seasons, where Ryan Day said every day they're putting a brick there, and we're going to build a foundation. So when the storms come, the foundation that you build is so important. And that message recirculated again today, where they said, we're going back to the basics. We're trusting in our foundation that we have built. So when the storms come, we can withstand it. There was a storm that came in Indianapolis. The offensive line did not have a great day. Julian Sayin was sacked more than 5 times. That hasn't happened all season. Now it has. Now you're playing a defensive line that just got 7 sacks against Texas A&M. The trends tell you that's the matchup problem. Your eyes tell you that's the matchup problem. But last year it was a matchup problem too, because Ohio State lost 2 offensive linemen on the back half of the season, and that offensive line played out of their minds in the college football playoff. So yes, we're talking about offensive line injuries for Ohio State, a collapse, giving up a lot of sacks, new play caller. None of it, though, Steve, is unfamiliar for Ohio State, and that's the place where I can give you peace as an Ohio State fan or somebody looking into this team saying, am I concerned? Should I be concerned about this? Yes, of course, you have the obvious, okay, how are they going to execute? Because you have to execute and you have to replicate it. But it's not unfamiliar territory for Ohio State, and that's the thing for me when I see this team and the product that they can put out, the ceiling that they have, I can trust because I have proven results over a sustained period of time that Ohio State's going to be able to have that figured out. Now, they may give up a sack or 2. They may give up 3. You don't know. But that game plan that they're going to have is going to be right. They're going to have the best players in the best positions possible to succeed. And they're going to have those position groupings, right? Especially in the red zone and in short yardage, which is another thing Ryan Day talked about because that was the Achilles heel against Indiana. That's why they lost. And that was something that Ryan Day said that has to get fixed. And again, another simple answer, fix the issues.
Exactly. Execute. We've heard it from every level, every player or coach we've talked to is it's execution, at least offensively in the short yardage and in goal line situations to go. The other thing that I wanted to piggyback on what you were saying was Ryan Day kind of talked a little bit about or was asked about whether it was beneficial to have a bye or go straight into that game. And I think just like last year, when they had that time off from having not made the Big Ten championship game, this year they have the same amount of time off, essentially.
It just doesn't feel that way.
Well, they got a chance to get it right at right guard, to get that offensive line right. So I think it's great for them. Ryan Day said it did kind of really edge the team a little bit to have to sit this long on a loss. But that build-up, I think, is a good thing. It's a good motivational factor. And for a team that's hot, you don't want to rest. You don't want to be laying low for 3 weeks. But for a team that has a little bit to work on, has some motivational factors, has to build that edge back up, I think it's a great thing. They can practice on that offensive line, get things squared away, and be ready for an elite defensive line in Miami.
They're going to be ready for that defensive line. And Steve, we're talking about practice, and not having time off. What have those practices looked like? We got insight into that. They looked intense, and it was good on good. It was best on best. That's how you keep your edge. Because Ryan Day was asked about it, Carson Hinsman was asked about it, Max Clare. All of the offensive players and Coach Day were all asked, how do you keep your edge with a layoff that way? And they all said the same thing at the beginning. It all starts with how we practice. And then they said, we practice, it's been intense. It has been good on good. They have been spirited practices, we heard.
For sure.
You're going to have raised tones. It's so competitive in this building. And that's a sign of encouragement you want to see for Ohio State because you're looking at this team. Are they going to keep their edge? They've had the 3.5 weeks off. Last year they did too because they didn't play in the Big Ten Championship. That was something Ryan Day mentioned. Hey, we played the Big Ten Championship game this year. Other teams didn't. Last year they didn't play in the Big Ten Championship game, and they played the 3rd week of December.
Exactly. Advantage, disadvantage. Ryan Day said it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
We got to go out and be ready and play the game. The other thing that we needed to talk about, we had 2 other players that we didn't even talk about, a Heisman candidate and Julian Sayin, and like you said, Max Clare. We're working backwards from everyone we talked to, so Max Clare's next up on the list. Max Clare did talk about, hey, this is why I came to Ohio State from Purdue. I didn't get this chance before. So now I know what it feels like. I'm getting myself prepared, and he's excited to get in the college football playoffs for the first time, man. That's got to be a cool feeling for Max Clare.
It has, and he's worked really, really hard, and he's continued to improve as the season's gone on. And he's going to be a really big key for Ohio State in this college football playoff, because maybe even against Miami, we're going to see it right away in this first game, because there aren't any more guaranteed ones after that. Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate get a lot of attention. Brandon Ennis and Max Clare, those are those next options right underneath. They're going to have opportunities, and they have to execute. And when you ask Max Clare how he has grown throughout this entire season, he's like, well, I can still grow in every area of the game. Run, pass, it doesn't matter. So he's continuing to stay hungry too. And he's worked hard coming from Purdue to Ohio State. Like you just said, this is the reason why he transferred. It's for games like this. And then even Julian Sayin said the same thing. You know, it's a childhood dream come true. He wanted to play on the biggest stages as a kid. He wanted to be involved in that Heisman Trophy ceremony. He wants to hoist a national championship trophy. He wants to play in the college football playoff in front of over 100,000 fans.
Sure.
This is why guys come to Ohio State, whether you do it as a recruit, whether you do it as a transfer, or whether you grow up in Columbus like a Sonny Styles, wear the Block O jersey, and then get a tree in Buckeye Grove as an All-American, win a national championship, and beat Michigan.
And that's the thing. Let's be honest about Max Clare. He came in here. He had the receiving part down. We knew that last year. We saw him leading receiver for Purdue. Came in here ready to catch the ball. What he needed to work on was pass blocking. Well, we're going to see the next iteration of that coming in the Cotton Bowl on New Year's Eve. How well does he block these defensive edges, man? Because these guys are elite.
The best they've seen all year.
Oh, easily. I mean, best defensive line, maybe that could go to Indiana, but it's definitely going to be the best defensive end or edge rushers that we've seen all year. I think easily.
And two, when you see those edge rushers, and Carson Hinsman was asked about this. Yeah, there's a lot of talk that goes to Bain and Mesidor, but the interior of that Miami line is also good. That whole front seven is really good. And again, if you're holding Marcel Reed captive for an entire game in that Texas A&M offense just to 3 points, you're doing something right. So yeah, maybe Miami's given up points earlier in the season, but on the biggest stage that they were asked to play on so far this year, defense has given up 3 points. Big takeaway. How does Ohio State combat that?
Well, I think, you start with Julian Sayin. He was the first one we talked to, last one we had to mention.
Right.
He did talk about getting the ball out, take what the defense gives you. If it's a 5-yard out, if it's a 5-yard pass play, go ahead and dump it off like he's been doing all season.
Right.
He doesn't need to wait too long because this defensive line's built differently. And kind of like Indiana, there was sometimes where he was waiting. Go ahead and get that ball out, get it out to your outlet, because some people even called him check down Charlie, which was. I don't even think that was negative. I don't think that was derogatory at all. You take what the defense gives you, and I think that's what he's got to do in this game, even more so. Ryan Day also did talk about something that goes along with it. He said the DBs have to beat that edge rush, the pass rush, not the DBs.
Yeah,
so running your routes correctly,
yeah.
Timing of your routes, and getting out of the break quickly is very important. So getting the ball away quickly is something that Julian Sayin's focused on, and that was really the only thing he gave us. He was pretty buttoned up and professional in this, wasn't he?
He was, as he usually is, because he's a class act up and down, and he's going to let his play on the field do the talking, and that's something we've seen all season. We saw it in New York. We saw it again today. We're going to see it on New Year's Eve. That's just how Julian Sayin is as a player. And Steve, even you mentioned him taking the check down and saying, all right, if it's 5 yards, you move to the next play. That's part of the reason why Ohio State's offense has been so efficient, because they're not worried about having to connect on a big play. And even Jeremiah Smith was asked how he's grown in his mentality this whole year. Like, what's been the mental difference for you from the beginning of the season to the end of the season after having the full season under your belt? And he said, it's learning not to worry about what I can't control and taking what the defense gives you, let the game come to you. Because he knows he's going to have his opportunity to make plays. He knows the ball's going to come his way eventually. And he said he'll do whatever it takes for the team. If he is a decoy for 2.5 quarters and Carnell Tate scores a touchdown on the deep ball, then Ohio State is seeing success. Therefore, Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are seeing success.
For sure.
That's the big message. And for this team, it's so selfless. When you have elite players who are selfless, you see great results.
Recipe for success. Well, we got the offense taken care of later tonight. We're going to get the defense. So we'll be back again sometime around 7:30, I guess it would be, to talk to you again with the defense. So once again, thank you all for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. God bless. Take care, and we'll see you tonight.